Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's Connect Group study, and this is the teaching curriculum. Rather, it's probably just more of a testimony that I want to share with you in regards to missions. Last Sunday we talked about a wonderful story from 2 Kings chapter 13 about striking the arrow, and I related that story to our church's involvement in world missions and also around Australia through Indigenous ministry and through our local ministry around here in the Adelaide region, primarily through our church activities and also through Adelaide City Care. I wanted to share a testimony in regards to my heart towards missions. In 1986 was my first trip overseas to a missions base, and I went to Papua New Guinea. It wasn't the CRC, it was another church movement, CLC. And I went over there in 1986 for 2 weeks, and to be honest, it really shocked me. I was living on the Gold Coast in Queensland at the time, and when I looked at the map of the top of Australia to Papua New Guinea, it was only really about that much difference on the map. But when I got there, it was hugely different to Australia. I loved that trip, I enjoyed that trip immensely, and it really impacted my life. So much so that in 1989 I went back to Papua New Guinea and I spent about 8 weeks there. My family went over to Europe, but I felt that I would go to Papua New Guinea and I would spend more time there and trying to understand the culture, but more so to find myself, to be perfectly honest. And at that stage of my life, I really needed to get some clarity on where I was headed in my life and for my destiny, so to speak, or for my career. And at that time when I was in Papua New Guinea, I had a time of prayer and fasting with a wonderful pastor who has since gone to be with the Lord. His name was Pastor David Milwap. And when I was with him, we spent 10 days fasting on the island of New Britain in a city called Rabaul. During that time, the Lord really spoke to my heart, and He gave me a real detailed vision in regards to my ministry back on the Gold Coast in the church where I was at. Never forgotten that time. And those 2 trips to Papua New Guinea early in my life really set the tone for the rest of my life and ministry. So much so that when I look for a lovely wife, which I've found a lovely wife, Kelly, now for many, many years, and got 4 wonderful kids, I wanted to meet my partner, who I realised would also have a heart for missions as well, so that we could serve together. At that time, Kelly had been to Solomon Islands a number of times, and when we connected in New Zealand and got married, we had one heart and purpose to serve the Lord, and world missions was going to be a big part of that. Since we've had our children, we've made a decision as a family that we would do missions together, that world missions would be a part of our family, an integral part of our family, so much so that not only do I visit and does Kelly visit, but also all of our 4 children have regularly visited the mission field, because that's what we do as a family. In fact, missions is what the Groom family does. We've been really inspired by Pastor Barry and Rosalie Silverback and many other folk that have gone out and served as missionaries, really inspired by Nolan Merritt as a missionary that has served many years in Papua New Guinea and also Switzerland, and the other missionaries that we've met, and Rachel Hardy is one of those missionaries. Rachel is a wonderful missionary for the CRC church. It's fantastic. She does a fantastic job, and her heart towards serving God and serving others is really second to none. I think of Pastor Warwick and Amiga Hughes over in the Faith Centre in Walhalla in South Carolina. Again, wonderful missionaries. Our church is linked with some great people serving over the Lord. It really does me proud to see so many of our folk here in our church that is wanting to serve on the mission field. In the Sri Lanka, the children's homes, over in India, through preschools in Fiji. I think of the training institutes up in India, Papua New Guinea and various other nations, the Solomon Islands where we are associated and we visit regularly. I want to commend you as a church to continue to pray for our world missions ministry. But more than that, be a part of going. Either going through your prayers, through your finance, or through your feet, so that you can be a part of our missions program. In this Connect Group discussion, I want to encourage you to go through the notes that we shared last Sunday, but also discuss about your heart for world missions. In your questions, I've asked a question of where would you like to go, or would you like to visit one of our fields? I encourage you to think about this and pray about this and talk about this as a Connect Group. What can you do in regards to your support for world missions as a group? Can you support financially, prayerfully, or could you go as a group on a missions trip? You can discuss all that and see what you come up with. But my heart is to see a church, a local church like ours, that part of its DNA is not only to reach this nation and this city, but to reach the countries beyond our country of Australia. We live in an amazing country, and we are blessed to be a blessing. As a church, we are blessed to be a blessing. So we are going to continue on in our missions ministry. We're going to continue to pioneer new frontiers for the extension of God's kingdom, and we're going to support Pastor Barry Silverback and his apostolic ministry to the nations, and we're not going to apologise for that. We're going to run full bore right into all that God has got for us internationally, and also, as I bring this to a close, for our ministry amongst our Indigenous Australians. This is a ministry that God has opened up to us that has been in my heart for many years. My grandmother is apparently half Aboriginal. We can't quite clarify that or not because of the records, but deep within my heart, I've always wanted to do something for Indigenous ministries. It's amazing how God has brought us together with our Tennant Creek Christian Family Church in Tennant Creek. What an amazing testimony, and I haven't got time to share about that. But in recent times, to be able to meet up with my schoolmates, Skippy Reid and Darren Sutherland, where we all grew up, the three of us grew up together playing football, and we lived in a small town of Gilgandra in New South Wales. After 35 years, God has brought us together again. So as a church here at Adelaide Christian Centre, we're partnering with Tennant Creek Christian Family Church and the Judah Ministry in Orange, New South Wales, and they are merging into us. We're one church but in 3 states, with a purpose of reaching Indigenous Australians for the kingdom of God. So think about that, pray about that, and I want to commend you as a church. I want to commend you as a Connect group for your heart towards missions. We are 75 years young in November this year. I would love for us to continue to serve God in this way as we reach out to the lost for the extension of God's kingdom, so that we can have a hope for our young people, for our children, that they can continue the ministry that was started many, many years ago in this church and will continue for many, many years to come. Missions is God's heartbeat. It has a special place in my heart, in my lovely wife's heart, Kelly, and also our children. And I know in the very bedrock of this church, Adelaide Christian Centre, it is very much a part of the heart of this church. Thank you for your support, but let's not rest on our laurels. Let's continue to serve God the best we can in the area of world missions, national missions with our Indigenous Australians, and through reaching our own Jerusalem here in the Adelaide region, through Adelaide City Care and through our church and through our personal witness. So that's just a bit of a testimony, a bit of an encouragement for you as a group. I encourage you to go through the notes, discuss those from last Sunday, but also look through the questions and look to the Lord or where He may lead you, either to Tennant Creek, Orange or beyond Australia, for an outreach trip to reach those that desperately need to hear about Jesus Christ. Other than that, God bless you, pray for one another, and we'll see you next time.